Hello everybody, my name is Jacob Quillen Stewart, and I'll be going over some of the code I used for my research project. So the basics of this code are an item interaction, an item usability, and an item variability. So you can interact with the item, check it out, look at its information, then you can use the item on specific doors, and then you can finally, then there'll be multiple items that you can choose from. And I got my basics for the tutorials from this tutorial set from Ryan Laley, which goes through looking at, picking up, dropping, inspecting, and some of the UI stuff. And then I also did a door and key tutorial as well as text on screen when you pick it up, along with a couple other things here and there taken from my past projects. So the thing that starts this whole code off is an interaction interface, which is just an interface blueprint. And this stores two functions, my look at and interact with. Both of these functions are used for different aspects of how you interact with the item. So the look at will notice where the character's looking and directly correlate that to the item. And then the interact with, once you're actually looking at the item holding it, you can interact with it, go into a separate screen where you can rotate it and move it around. Most of these functions don't really store anything, they're just here to get a starting point. The next main thing I had to do was set how the character is actually going to interact with this item on the ground. So before even creating the item, I have to make a line trace for the character. So it'll go through the first person camera and get all the locations for where this camera is, and also check the look at function that we just created. And once it does all that, we'll get the line trace channel. The line trace channel is that little red dot you see whenever you're actually interacting with the items, which tells where exactly the player character is looking at so that they can make sure that they're picking up the correct item. Once that line trace plays through, this will determine exactly where we're clicking at. So it'll look for the specific actor that is our item. And if we are line tracing on top of an item, we will be able to pick it up. The other blueprints stored in our first-person character also use the camera to interact with the objects for the most part. Let's see, this one casts the HUD to the first-person game. So when the event begins play, it will cast to the first-person game mode. So we can see the heads-up widget display whenever we go into an item inspection menu or whenever we're hovering over an item. This little function right here just checks the look at, plays the function so you can look at it. This one right here switches between holding object and inspection mode. So whenever the button is pressed, if it is valid, we'll interact with it, the self. And if it's not valid, we'll interact with the currently held item, which will change which item we're interacting with. And whenever we want to drop the item, we can just use this cancel function. And when that's valid, we'll drop the currently held item. There's also several different variables I use throughout the project through the first-person character, the look at actor, currently held item, HUD, and each of those do a different thing that goes through picking it up, inspecting it, and placing it back down. Within the game mode, this just calls to the heads-up display widget so that we can display that during the playthrough of the game, so we'll know which items we need to pick up or which doors we need to interact with. Also for the project, I needed to create two widget blueprints, and both of those are for text showing up on the screen for different occasions. The first one is for whenever we're hovering over either an item or a door. It'll tell us down here at the bottom, you need to interact with this door, or you need to interact with this item. The other widget blueprint is for item inspection. So we've got a little menu up here in the corner that will tell the player what they need to do to inspect a certain item, as well as an item description, which is left blank for a separate function to fill it up. This one is also left blank. Now, within the graph, this just updates the message whenever the player is hovering over certain items. So it gets the player character as well as the event construct, casts, and updates the message. This one actually has a few more functions inside of it because along with setting up the text to show what the item is. I set up an automatic scrolling function, which was completely my own doing off tutorial, because I felt like it would be a lot easier than setting up an actual scrolling function. So the text stops for a second at the beginning and then automatically starts scrolling as the tutorial or as the inspection goes on. And it will just go through. Yeah, it sets the scroll offset, the timer of 2 seconds when you start, before it starts scrolling. And then once it does, it will scroll at a pace of 1. And will stop there at the end for a total of 2 seconds once it's finished going through all the text. The main thing that took the longest bit of time throughout the project was the item parent. And I set it up as an item parent so that I could create subclasses of this specific one to create multiple items, instead of just having this single item that does one thing in the game. So as you can see, the mesh for this one is just a cube because it's just the parent item. There's no need to make it anything specific. It just stores all our functions: pick up, start inspection, drop item, stop inspection, as well as several variables for player, rotating, zoom level, item name, description, and UI. And over here on the right side, we've got a text setup. This directly calls to the widget interface that shows what is being said in the description about that item, and it places it onto the screen, as well as it displays the name of the item when you hover over it. There are several different functions within the event graph of the item parent that just set up the functionality for how you can turn it during inspection mode, as this one right here specifically sets it so you can roll it on the x-axis, and the z-axis. And this one down here sets it up to where you can roll it on the y-axis, and those two together will allow you to roll it pretty much any direction. You can also set the zoom level for the inspection mode so that you've got a minimum of 1 and a max of 20, so you can't just constantly zoom in and constantly zoom out till the item's out of view. And this function sets the camera so that whenever we do go into inspection mode, we can't keep moving around the map. We are locked into place as we're looking at this item. And this little one stops the function as it does an interact event to stop it. This one, that first one just set up the zoom in, but this one down here sets up the zoom out with the same max or min of 1 and max of 20. And also sets the camera location for that. And this is the function that displays the press E to pick up name. And when you put the name in brackets like that, it'll add this separate little function down here where you can plug in an item name. This item name variable stores all the different item names. For my pickup function, this snaps the item into the hand of the player so that it's slightly visible in the corner of the screen as you walk around, and it will hold it there and lock it to the camera. This, whenever you set the object down or pick it up, it will set the physics so that instead of just lightly dropping to the ground and not moving, it'll roll around if you drop it from high enough, or you can kick it around the map. This one right here will hide the text. It'll set the visibility to hidden when you're not hovering over the object. So instead of displaying press E to pick up the item constantly over the screen, this sets it to where you can only see press E to pick up the item when you're looking at a specific object that's interactable. This one locks the object to the viewport so that you can't move around. You're just looking at that specific item. And this sets the location of the camera in relation to where the object is being held. So you can't push the item too far away from the camera. You have to always be in sight with it. For the drop item function, it just plays a drop item function that will detach the actor from the character, and it will set the location, set physics so it can roll around, as well as set the camera whenever you are back. After you drop the item, you don't have anything locked to your screen. And for the stop inspection mode, it's similar to that one, just plays the stop inspection function and disables the inspection mode, so it'll place the object back in the hand of the player and remove from parent. And this one just sets the visibility of the HUD whenever you are in that mode, so it'll turn off whenever you exit. And the final thing I added to the project was a simple door mechanic, where whenever you use the specific item on the door, that door will open. You can't use this item on anything else, only that specific door, and it tells you whenever you hover over the door which one you can use. So whenever you're hovering over the door, it will display a text of press E to use blank. So it'll be that item if and only if that item is available, is the one that can be used. If not, if it's false, it displays find the correct key to open this door, and you'll have to go back and try different keys. Once the door is opened, it will destroy the actor, so there's no need to keep that item in your hand since you've already used it on the one door you need it for. And this sets the location for the door, so whenever it moves, it's gone from the screen. And this little graph right here just sets it over this time of 1 second. Once the item is interacted with the door, it will just drop it to 192 and get it out of the way so you can proceed. Now, the way I set up multiple doors as well as multiple items throughout the project is I started with this parent door and went from there and created subclasses. Each door can only be interacted with a specific item, and each item is just a direct offset of this original parent item. So they have the exact same blueprints stored within each one of them, but it works as though you can choose which functions you decide that you want to use throughout the project. Alright, thanks for watching.